Gerry, to the BLC Field School and participating in this in the oral history interview.
Okay.
And if you, for starters, your full name, what you do, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is GerryCoon, C-O-O-N. And professionally, I'm the executive director at a place called St. Francis Children's Center. It's on the Cardinal Stritch campus, and we work with children with special needs. That's the focus of what we do. Personally, I'm real involved in things in the neighborhood. We've been here for 26 years, and I've been on a variety of neighborhood organization boards, and I just do all kinds of stuff. And I'm also on the board of an organization called Diverse and Resilient, which works to eliminate health disparities amongst lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender folks in Wisconsin.
Okay, and why Washington Park? What attracted you to this home, the neighborhood?
Yeah, at some point I'm going to be curious to hear what Stuart had to say. Stuart and I met while we were both living in Madison, and then I moved back to Milwaukee, and we did this Madison-Milwaukee kind of commute back and forth. And after about a year, it was real clear that wasn't going to work. So we had to make a decision. Do I move back to Madison? Does he move here to Milwaukee? And part of what was going to lead to that was what house were we going to have. He wanted a big, old house that he could restore. Didn't matter where it was. And I was newly in the field of the nonprofit world. He was just graduating from college. So the deal was it had to be something we could afford. So we first looked in Brewers Hill, and this would have been 26 years ago. And Brewers Hill is just north of downtown. It was kind of this dynamic, newly emerging neighborhood. Things were way too expensive. Things on the east side were too expensive. And, I just saw this at that time in grocery stores. They would have, I guess magazines is the best way to describe it, with houses for sale. We looked at these pictures, and this one sounded interesting, so I got online and I drove by it, and I noticed the two oval windows in the front doors. There was an oval window on the side, and I've always loved oval windows. Didn't really realize it until I saw these oval windows. And I said, Stuart, we need to look at this house. So we did. It was a mess. The neighborhood was a mess. But for those of you who've seen the inside, the stuff was here to work with. So that's how we ended up in the house. So it really wasn't so much about the neighborhood. It was about the house. And then that, of course, brought us here. And then from there, started just getting more involved in the neighborhood.
And eventually you bought up some acreage around.
Yeah. At the time, if there were vacant properties, I'm sure Stuart said this, you could buy them for $1 from the city because the city really saw them as a liability because there's just no market for it here. So yes, we've subsequently purchased enough property that we've now got a full acre, which is kind of mind-boggling to us, being 5 minutes from downtown and having a full acre of land. I mean, we really think that's pretty neat. And we love it. I mean, in a crazy way, we just really love being here. So
yeah, and when did you start getting interested in the history of the home? At the beginning?
Oh yeah, no, that would have absolutely been at the beginning. And we knew that the house was in this book by Russell Zimmerman, Magnificent Milwaukee, which is an incredible book of houses that are still standing. This is the least significant house in the book. I don't know how this house made it into the book, quite frankly, but it just has this interesting history. And Stuart and I have both always been very, very interested in historic preservation, just in general. And then certainly with the house, we were very interested to find out as much as we could about the history. And fortunately, we were able to find out quite a bit. So, that all of those things, the house, the history, the fact that it was 5 minutes from downtown, the fact that it was very affordable, just all worked to make this happen.
And what was it about the history or the way it was set up that was most striking to you?
Interestingly enough, I think for me, part of it was from the time it was built to what had happened to the time we purchased it. So during the Depression, it was divided up into many different living spaces for people. And then after that, it was turned into a group home for mentally retarded adults. And my profession has always been working with people with disabilities. And actually, up in the closet upstairs, there's a fairly large linen closet in the hallway. And we still have, we've just never taken it down. There's like an index card up there posted with, this room gets how many sheets of linen and how many towels, and this room gets how many sheets of linen. And it was from the time that it was this group home. And it was called Victorian House, is what it was called. And then I'm not sure why that didn't stay that way as a group home. I don't know if the neighborhood became too challenging, whatever, and then it was sold to another couple who we ultimately bought it from. So just seeing that history and also being aware of the very quick decline in the neighborhood. I look at European standards and the beauty of European cities and how things closest to downtown have always been the most desirable pieces of property in European cities. In the United States, it became very much the opposite. Whatever was closest to downtown was what was discarded. Some of it which will never be brought back again because it's just gone. So with this house, it was more about that history of what happened from the time it was built than really any particular uniqueness about this house. I mean, we love any old house. There's a million old houses you can walk into and they're just so beautiful. This is just happens to be the one we ended up with. So.
And like at the Amaret Bakery, Dave and Stephanie. And do you ever talk shop like the old homes renovation?
Yeah, we do. I think Stuart and I are more into it than Dave and Stephanie are. I think they're so consumed by their business and they're so involved in the neighborhood in a very, very good way that consumes more of their time, I think, than focusing on their house. And their house is just a stunning house. It's such a great house. But I think we're on different planes in terms of that piece of it. Related to that, though, one of the things that I think surprises me about Stuart and me and disappoints me, and I think Dave and Stephanie would say the same, is we were such strong historic preservationists when we moved in here that any time prior to that, when we would see houses torn down or old things torn down, it was just so horrible to see. And living here, it was like, tear it down, because it was one less problem property. It was one less thing where there might be all kinds of people coming and going. And I'm not proud of that, and I wasn't prepared for that. But yet it was a very real reaction we had. And Dave and Stephanie, to some degree, have that same. And when they first moved in, because we've been here far longer than they have, they were all about saving everything. And now, and I can't really speak for them, but I believe that some of that has changed, that sometimes just having it gone is better. And I still haven't fully reconciled that. I struggle with that a great deal.
With your participation in neighborhood organizations, do you meet with or just come across neighbors with duplexes or older homes, but like less ornate, or and talk to them about what they're doing with their home? Or
yeah, interestingly enough, the reality is you can't live in Milwaukee and not be very aware of race issues. You certainly can't live in this part of the city and not be real aware of that. And I think Stuart and I have always been very aware that we're a couple of white guys with better incomes than most neighborhood residents who could walk away tomorrow if we wanted to. And it's really about this house as part of this anchor and draw for us. So as a result of that, we really, we've gotten to know some people very well, but over 26 years, people have come and gone. So there really isn't that. I have not developed those kinds of relationships. And add that other piece to it is the whole influx of the Hmong population. And there was some Hmong when we first moved in. Certainly gotten more now. The entire other side of that street, there's only 4 houses over there. Many of them have been torn down since we've been here. But that entire side is Hmong, and we really don't have a relationship with them. So I wouldn't want people to just think that it's this really, that our relationship with the neighborhood is this tight, cozy relationship, and we just chat with the neighbors about this, that, and the other thing. And quite frankly, again, most of the neighbors that we've known, they're here because the economics require them to be here. And so much of their world is about the struggle of just survival. And the whole concept of historic preservation or neat old stuff, I don't know that it's a real common thing. I think that a lot of people can appreciate old stuff, but not in the same way maybe that Stuart and I do. And that sounds a little elitist, and maybe it is. But I'm just trying to respond to things as openly and honestly as I can with that.
Excuse me. The organizations that you're a part of, what do you discuss? What's the priorities?
Yeah, and in the early years, I mean, as soon as we moved in, because I've always been a real grassroots kind of guy, and I strongly believe, I'm a liberal Democrat, but I strongly believe you do what you can for yourself. You don't expect other people to do things for you unless you really need help. And I was just going to do whatever I could do to help make this neighborhood better. And so there were two organizations early on. One was called Cooperation West Side Association, COSA. Got involved with that right on and got involved in the board of directors. Then there was another organization called LAND, Lisbon Avenue Neighborhood Development. I eventually got on the board of that. Both of them are gone now. But at that time, the focus was really about community organizing, trying to do block clubs. And the focus was about safety, crime, as well as the housing stock. Again, 26 years ago, this old wooden housing stock was 26 years less old. I mean, housing like this without maintenance, it just it needs constant work. And with a lot of, I don't necessarily want to call them slumlords, but absentee landlords, the quality of the housing stock was just deteriorating, hence things would get torn down. So the focus was crime, safety, organizing, and housing stock. Those were the things in the early years. Eventually, like everything else, I pulled back from that stuff because my life just took some other turns in terms of going back to school and then getting much more involved and politically involved in LGBT issues in Milwaukee. So that's where my focus went. Just recently, I've started to put my toe back in terms of neighborhood stuff, and it's really because of the prostitution problem along Lisbon Avenue and what that impact is for us. Stuart can kind of see that and not see it. I'm afraid I can't see anything and not see it. So just last night I was at a Washington Park Partners meeting for the first time in quite a while. And it was interesting. But so the focus for me now really is about crime and crime reduction. So those are the things that people talk about. And, we're very aware that there's big problems and very limited resources and not a great deal of body of knowledge about how do you attack these things? I mean, how do you get at the root cause of what's going on to try to impact change? So
it seems like more of the priority in the neighborhood is prevention of crime and the increased quality of life and the historic preservation.
I would suggest that historic preservation isn't even on most people's radar. It's all about crime. And it's not even about preserving the housing stock as much anymore. I think the focus is almost exclusively on crime being drugs, gunfire, and prostitution. But prostitution is really about this 5-block area here. If people are west of 35th, it really doesn't impact them quite the same way. So, but yes, that's the focus.
And the people that you interact with, are they mostly business owners, homeowners? Or?
Yeah, no, they're overwhelmingly homeowners, most of whom are African American, most of whom are a little older, and I think that's probably a legacy of people who purchased homes here and just now are that much older and haven't left. Most of the properties around here are if they're home-owned, it's Hmong who own them. Very, very few of the African Americans around here actually own their homes. And I think that has an impact on how involved people get. Now, that's my sense. I could be wrong about that, but that's my sense. But it's definitely about homeowners and not about the businesses. Dave and Stephanie would be a real exception, but they're both homeowners and business owners. They're pretty unusual.
Do you spend, your free time mostly around here, or do you walk to Washington Park or to?
Yeah, no, it's mostly around here, and because there's so little free time. I'm between working full time, being on a board of different things. Stuart's busy. I mean, there's hardly a weeknight we don't have something going on. And then just the physical upkeep of this property. So, I say that I love this neighborhood, but we don't take advantage of Washington Park. We don't do that. I mean, we're so consumed by everything else that we do, including this property. It takes so much time. And we don't really see that as a burden. It's, we constantly will say to each other, it's like, oh, here, it's a beautiful Saturday morning, and some people are going out and going to spend the day on a golf course. That would bore me to tears. I mean, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go shopping. There's a lot of things that people do for hobbies I'm just not interested in. So I think our hobby is about this house and the property and the garden, and to some degree the neighborhood. And that keeps us pretty occupied.
And, excuse me, what is your favorite place in the home for you?
Oh, I'm thinking he probably would say the same thing. The library has always felt really good to us, and particularly in the wintertime with the fireplace. And we kind of have this tradition on every Christmas Eve. I mean, I typically go to my family and we spend some time with his family, but then we come home and we'll go in the library, we'll start a fire, the dogs come in, we put on some Christmas music, and we always have something alcoholic to drink. And it's just, you create traditions. And the library was the first room that we really did. So the library just always feels good to us. With that said, however, in the summertime, we live on the back porch and in the backyard. We are out there all the time. And, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, it's, margaritas and salsas and chip on the back porch. Life is good. So it's, there's those kinds of things that just help make this pretty wonderful. So those would be the two special places. Yeah.
And when you entertain, do you entertain in the back mostly too?
It's funny. For many years, we didn't even want to do anything in the summertime for fear of what the neighborhood might be presenting itself at that time. I mean, we didn't know if it'd be loud and raucous rap music, really foul stuff. So we just, can we do this? Can we have people over? Will they feel safe? In the wintertime, it's never an issue, having people inside. But in the last, I'd say maybe 3 years, and part of it is when we bought the property next door, the duplex, and I think you've heard that story, it was a duplex in foreclosure. We bought it, tore it down, because it was such a problem property. That significantly changed this whole block. I mean, that one thing made such a difference. So now we're much more comfortable having people over. So whatever, in, out, yeah, it depends on the time of the year.
Could you expand on more why it made such a difference, the
demolition
of that duplex?
Sure. So it was a duplex that had then, by the time we moved in, been turned into a 4-family. So, and, just that alone speaks to what was happening. I mean, imagine on the east side where there might be a lot of duplexes, where it's a healthy rental economy. Landlords aren't going to turn those things into 4 families without cramming people in and having implications for the neighborhood and the property itself. So it was a 4-family that literally, it was prostitution, drug dealing, gunfire, throwing trash out the window into our yard. I mean, when you don't live here like this, it's hard to believe, particularly when you've been raised white, middle class. It's hard to understand that. But it was all of those things. It was that bad. And, so it was a house that might have had 20 different people coming and going at all different times, and all of this stuff, trash everywhere. And then you just remove that from the neighborhood. It just had such an impact. And then, of course, it allowed us to expand our property, which was wonderful for us, to go from alley to alley. That was always We never really thought of ever acquiring that property. We never thought that would be possible. But it even just changed our mindset. And with that said about living next to something like that, Stuart and I frequently say, and we believe this to be true, but nobody ever tells us this, that people think we're crazy for living here. And we understand that. Because when we describe it, why would you choose to do that? And I think part of it, as I said earlier, is knowing we could walk out the door, lock it, and leave. And we'd be fine. We could do that. Our life savings isn't in this house because it was never an investment. It was a labor of love, not an investment. Knowing we could just leave, quite frankly, makes it easier to stay. And we really don't want to go anywhere yet. It won't be until physically it's too much work. I mean, barring something else I haven't thought of. But, I mean, we don't intend to go anywhere anytime soon. But part of it is that we've started to see the improvements, and we want to be able to be a part of it. That's also part of why the prostitution is so frustrating for me, because that is the most visible piece now, that it's just like, how can I crack that nut? How can we deal with that particular issue? I mean, I alone can't take care of poverty. I alone can't take care of a lot of things. But what can I do on this block and right around here to try to make an impact? So, but your original question, that's why that made such a difference. All those folks were just gone.
And is it making an impact? Being on these organizations, the community organizing, is it making an impact?
Yeah, I absolutely think it does. I mean, as I've gotten older and farther along professionally in my career, again, I'm not proud of this. I'm less of a grassroots guy. I don't have quite the patience. I mean, last night at this meeting, there's issues I want to deal with, but other people have their issues, and I need to be respectful of that. But I have such limited time. But yes, it absolutely makes a difference. People who care, and I believe in the power of grassroots stuff. It's just that progress is very slow. And the forces we're up against, which is, again, poverty and disinvestment and, just so many of those things, it's so huge. But I absolutely believe you keep chipping away and you keep trying, and it absolutely makes a difference. It's just never as quick or as significant as you'd like it to be.
And, going to your occupation, working with disabled
kids with special needs.
Okay. And what I'm hearing, this common thread of seeing the potential in human beings, in the community, in this home.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, a piece of that is from the time I was, even maybe about 6th or 7th grade, I knew I wanted to work with people with disabilities in some capacity. And part of it was because I actually went to Catholic grade schools, and even there, there were a few kids with disabilities, and other Catholic kids were mean to them. I mean, people were mean to other people who were different for no good reason. I just couldn't understand that. And then, of course, my personal journey of coming out, and people were mean to me because now all of a sudden there was something, and it's like, I'm really kind of a good person. I'm the same person, I didn't choose this. How do you decide to treat somebody as an other? And then, so now then working with kids with special needs, and prior to working with kids with special needs, I was working with adults with special needs. But there's always been this thread for me about what difference does it make if people are different? And just, we should be able, if you're white, you should be able to live wherever you want. And if you're black, you should be able to live wherever you want. Anybody should be able to live wherever they want. Because most people want the same stuff. They want a safe place for their kids, and they want, those things. So I'm not sure how this was connecting, but there's always been, I don't want to call it social justice. That sounds a little too elitist. But, there's always been that piece of, can't we just all live together and respect each other and recognize, that we have differences, but at the end of the day, does any of that really matter? So,
and you go out to these meetings, and you're involved, and improving the lives. And do you ever invite nonprofit organizations with working with people with special needs over here for, I don't know, like a fundraiser or anything like that?
Yeah, no, we've done a million of those things. For both the neighborhood, in the early years, we used to do this Christmas thing every year. And who knows what a bûche de Noël is? Bûche de Noël is, it's a French thing. It's shaped like a log. I think it's log of Christmas. And Stuart's well into French stuff. And he created this gorgeous, he's a great cook and a baker. And he created this gorgeous bûche de Noël, which was just beautiful. We had it sitting on the dining room table. And of course, this group of young kids came in and totally destroyed it. And it's like, Stuart, you gotta gear things for the audience you're going to have. And if you've got kids, you don't want to make it bûche de Noël. So anyway, but we used to always have this Christmas thing here for the neighborhood. And it was always really magical. I mean, we'd do Christmas carols on the piano, and it was really fun. And those were in the early days when the house was still a mess. It's just reminded me of when people are newlyweds and they live in some, hellhole, but it can be the happiest time of their lives because, you're doing all this. It's new. It's all wonderful. So we've done that. We've had the house open for tours any number of times for both disability groups as fundraisers, not for us, but for disability groups, for the Central City Tour of Homes, for things like that. And certainly for LGBT stuff. So, we just had something just last summer here because it was the 25th year that we were in the house. So we did something and we raised about $4,000 that went to an organization. So we really like sharing the house as a draw to be supportive of things we care about. So, yeah.
And
no more bûche de Noëls, though, with kids.
The bûche de Noël. What is that? What is that made out of?
Yeah, no, it's a cake. It's all it is a cake with frosting, and it's designed to look like a log. So you think of like a Yule log, for Christmas. So that's this French tradition. I promise you, at one point now you will hear the word bûche de Noël, and you go, "Oh, that's what that is." But it's a pastry, just made to look like a log for Christmas.
These kids just went at it.
They went at it totally. How could they not? It's sort of like, oh, my bûche de Noël. But, those kinds of little stories are just kind of fun.
And is it like for Christmas a tradition, the library? Do you have a tree?
We don't anymore. We used to, because this house is so magical at Christmas time. And we used to, in a big way, do this. And I'd say probably about, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years ago, I just kind of got done with it because come December 26th, I wish none of it was around anymore in terms of all the Christmas thing. You have to take it all down. It's no fun. So we really don't. We haven't had a tree in a long time. We always do stuff outside because I think it's good for the neighborhood. I think it's good for the soul for people to see lights and stuff outside. But we really don't do much inside. And we're a little sad about that. We've got all of our stuff, and one day maybe we will. But in Stuart's profession, he's got this retail shop. He's very busy around the holidays. He's decorated his shop for Christmas, 2 months before Christmas. We're kind of both Christmased out. But one day before we leave, we'll do Christmas again. We'll see.
And in the home, about the library being, your most favorite place. What is? Do you like to read? What is?
Yeah, no, we both read all the time. I mean, I'm a voracious reader. He's a reader and a doer, but I just read everything, both in terms of my profession, everything about nonprofit stuff. I'm just a fanatic about that. Anything that's LGBT, I'm a fanatic about. And historic preservation and just urban issues, urban sustainability is just very important. So constantly reading about those things, getting journals on that, reading books about that, reading blogs about those sorts of things. Not necessarily in the library. Just because it's our favorite room doesn't mean that's not where I just plunk down. Interestingly enough, we spend most of our time upstairs where the TV is, just because it's where we have stuff. And then when it's warmer outside, I'm, again, constantly reading on the back porch.
And, about Stuart's like more of the like into art and into the,
He definitely is.
And do you appreciate it? Do you come to appreciate it?
Yeah, no. Well, I appreciate it because I appreciate him so much because he's just such a good person. And I know how much he loves this, and I can appreciate the beauty. And I don't know if he happened to share that I'd be really content living in a one-room efficiency. I don't care to own anything. I mean, all of this stuff, this is all about Stuart, and I'm just kind of along for the ride. I absolutely appreciate it, and I love the beauty. I just don't need to own it or necessarily live in it. I can see it, and it's like going to an art museum. I love going to an art museum. I don't need to take everything home with me. Some people might like to do that. It's just, there it is. I appreciate it, and now I've seen it, and now I can go. But the effort and the care that he puts into all of this stuff, I mean, it's just so important to him. I mean, this house is so big, and I'll walk around like, where is he? And I'll just find him in a room, just sitting, and I'm just observing. He just absorbs and takes it all in and dreams about stuff. I mean, this is so much a part of who he is. Yeah.
About entertaining, do you invite your families over? Do you ever use the formal dining room?
Yeah, Stuart loves formal stuff. So, yeah, no, we've absolutely done that. I mean, I don't know that we do it a lot, but yes, there's nothing he likes more than to put out chargers. Do you know what chargers are? The things that go under plates. The more over the top it can be, the happier he is, even though I think people don't have as good of a time. The more formal it is, I think, the less people enjoy it, quite frankly, because it's like a little too stiff. But he loves that. So, yes, we do that.
Do you guys have any questions?
Could you walk us through a typical day in the house and being as descriptive as you can?
Yeah. They're very different on the weekends versus weekdays. So weekday, I get up at 5. I'm gone by 20 after 5 in the morning, waving to the prostitutes out that early, because I go to the gym. And then I don't get back till about 6:30. So what else is going on here during the day, would be hard to say. Then when I come home, if we're both home, he makes dinner. I don't cook. I'm so lucky. He is such a great cook. I'd live in a one-room efficiency and eat cereal at night. I really would. I'd be very content with that. And we always make a point of eating together, and then we end typically by reading and then going to bed. I mean, it's really pretty basic and pretty dull. Typically in bed by about 9. On the weekends, it's a little different. I get up a little later, and I go and not in the house, but I literally pick up the trash from 30th to 35th Street on Lisbon and all the vacant lots. I do that every Saturday and Sunday. Come out early one morning and you'll see me doing that. And I actually, it's one of those things I can do and it makes a difference. And it's healthy. It's I wear gloves, it's exercise. And then it's really about, I always call it putzing. Stuart is much more serious about significant projects. I just kind of like to play around the edges. A typical day, I clean the house. Stuart doesn't think I clean well enough, but it's good enough for my standards. I clean the house. We always come together on Friday and Saturday nights for dinner, either here or out. And either Friday or Saturday, I always rent a movie and we do that, or we go out with friends, those kinds of things. So typical, it's really about whatever any people would do. I mean, in the summertime, we will work from morning till dawn, particularly outside, and it just never ends. And we really enjoy that. We're exhausted by the end of the day. But so I don't know how typical that is. Give us a snowstorm and I'm out there shoveling. We don't have a snow plow. I mean, I shovel all of this. It's a lot. But, I'm healthy enough that I can still do all that. So.
And what's your favorite dish?
Oh my gosh, Stuart makes so many good things. I'd have to say it's a pesto pasta. He makes homemade pesto sauce. We're both vegetarians. We have been forever. It's good. And he makes a killer pound cake. He just everything he makes is good.
Does he make these things from scratch?
Oh yeah, no, he's a scratch kind of guy. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So when you come home, is he home first and then he gets to smell the aroma? Or?
Again, I am so lucky. You all have to find a husband like him. Maybe you're married, I don't know, or a partner like him. Yeah, because I come home a little later because the store for him closes at 5, so he comes home. Like I said, I get home 6:15, 6:30. But I typically walk in the house and I can smell the food, and yeah, it's all good. And I've made a few attempts to help, and fortunately he says, stop, sit down and read. Don't even do it so I don't feel too guilty about not doing it. So, yeah.
To relax and read, what genre do you like to read?
Yeah, well, typically I'm not a fiction reader, although because I don't have time, there's too many other things I want to read. It's really about current stuff, whether it's about urban sustainability. There's a magazine called Architectural Record, which is great. It's got great urban stuff. There's, I read all of the LGBT current stuff. And I'm very interested, just in what's going on in the world. The Economist magazine is phenomenal it's a European perspective of a lot of United States things, which is helpful for Americans to get a European perspective of us. So it's really about real life, real stuff, and social issues. Yeah.
What was one of your first, or maybe one of your favorite memories in the home?
I'll tell you, the first memory was we moved in, we were sleeping in that room, and a mouse ran literally, as I recall it, across my shoulder. So this was the middle of summer. It was a hot summer. Well, it was July. We moved in July, 1988. It was a drought year. It was hotter than heck. It was chaos outside. And we're sleeping there. And we came to learn that the previous owners, one of them just wouldn't kill anything, including mice. I mean, I'm not nuts about killing them, but I'd prefer we didn't have mice in the house. And we came to understand the house was just infested with mice. So that was like this metaphor for what have we gotten ourselves into. So that was one of the first memories. So one of the favorite memories, a favorite memory. I'm always taken back to our traditions, and I'd say it would be any of the Christmases that we just do that stuff, just he and I. Relationships, you have to do that stuff to sustain them, I think. So it's not really about a favorite thing about this. Yeah. I'll tell you, every time we acquired a piece of property, it was a joyful, joyful thing. I mean, just because one of the first things we'd do is we'd go in and just put up a rickety little fence. And then we would just dream about, particularly Stuart, who's into all this landscape, about what is he going to plant and what is this going to look like in years. There's been so many of those opportunities, and they've just been really joyful amidst the chaos. And again, there's not nearly as much chaos anymore as there used to be. But yeah, I should be able to do a better answer than that, but I can't. Yeah.
Because of how big the home is and the cleaning, do you? I was curious about it. Do you split the responsibilities, or
only if there's people coming over and then he cleans bed and he does stuff that I don't do? No, I mean I'm the cleaner, the clothes washer, the lawnmower, the snow guy. I just do those things because we've just over time. He cooks, I do the dishes. We've got a dishwasher because he insisted. I was fine without that. We only got that a couple of years ago. But no, we pretty much have those things separate. And it's just, I don't know that it was a purposeful thing. It just kind of happened that way. But he would prefer I do a better job dusting. So he will dust because I just don't. I just don't see any purpose in it. So, yeah, so that would be one division there.
And do you... do you have the ladders where you, like outside, you clean the windows, or is there a way to clean from the inside? And... There's
no way to clean from the inside. The first year we were here, we took off all the storm windows, There are 72 windows between the basement, 72. Crazy. So we've over time learned we are not taking them all off. The reality is we rarely clean them. This is another middle class thing that we don't do in this house because it's just too much effort. There's just too much to do. I mean, the ladders are about painting and scraping and cleaning the gutters out, things that really make a difference in terms of the life of the house. Window cleaning would be a nice thing. It's just not on the list. It's just not on the list. Actually, I mean, look out any of the windows. They're pretty bad. Yeah. When my mother asked me, my 88-year-old mother asked me to come over and clean her windows, it's like, Mom, I don't clean my own windows. You're on your own. So anyway, bad son.
And when you invite family over, what is, or people that you entertain, what do they come away with? What's their compliment of the house?
Well, partly we wonder what they really are thinking versus what they say. I think what people come away with, particularly when they're inside, is people are so aware of where this is located and that it's such a challenging thing. And it's not uncommon for people to say something along the line of, you would never know you're in a neighborhood like this. You wouldn't know that. And it's different. Some people just don't care about old stuff. And they come here and all it is an old house that they would never have an interest in. Other people who really care certainly appreciate it. And I think people always ask, was this like this when you bought it? And to help, well, you saw some of those pictures, to try to get people to understand, no, it didn't look anything like this at all. It's just such a different world from the way most people live that I don't know that they really get it. But if people who know Stuart understand more about his love for all of this stuff, I think people who know me, it's a little more confusing about, why are you doing this? Why? Because it really isn't about me as much. So I think different people have different takeaways. And I do think that we always say, as they're driving home, they must be saying, those guys are absolutely nuts.
And a last question to wrap up the interview: what is home to you? The saying is, home is where, I don't even know what to say, but home is where the heart is. I mean, I really believe this is working because it's for Stuart and me, and it helps Stuart and I work. I mean, we've said that, I think we both believe this, that in some ways this house has contributed to the success of our 28-year relationship in a way that I think kids might. I mean, for all the challenges, it's this common bond, and some of it has been really tough. So I think home is really about, for me, it's about me and my family, or the person that I choose to spend my life with. And how do we define that? How do we make that? And this is what we've chosen to make that. And it's been really good. And we talk from time to time about what will that next place be, because we know that's going to happen. And then that'll be a home too. It'll be really sad. It'll be really sad to close the chapter on this place. But boy, a lot's gone into it. So, it's about the relationships that you create from wherever it is that you live. I like to think it's that more than it is about the physical structure, but it has been this physical structure for us as well, which again, I'm not nuts about. It's a thing. It's a piece of property. It really shouldn't matter, but it kind of does. So, well, thank you so much.
Certainly.
For opening up your house and your life to us.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.
All right.
You.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure. Stuart and I said that we feel bad for you that you obviously didn't get the box, which would have been a whole lot easier to measure when other people had just like a square house. This was your misfortune to have. Oh my God. So, but anyway, but thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Good. So it was or wasn't recording. Okay. So the stone is a carriage stone, which would have been originally in front of the house. And it was common that it was in front of houses with the names on, so presumably people would know where to get off of the carriage. And it was subsequently moved to the duplex, the property over there. We had no idea it was there. It wasn't until the house was torn down and they were filling in that we found this big stone. Didn't see anything written on it, but we wanted to save it because it was just so beautiful. And we were hauling it back, and it was covered with mud, and Stuart started wiping it off, and he said, "Gerry, come over here." And he said, "Look at this stone." And then we could see that it said F. Koenig on it. And then we made the connection for what it was. So it was almost just dumped into the pit of that property when it was filled in, because they dig out the basement and put in fill. So that's how we found it. And then we hauled it over here and put it in front of this.
And you think it was the original carriage stone?
We do believe it was the original carriage stone. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
and,
no, we think so.
Yes.
And it's just a fluke that we even figured out what it was and even saw it. Because it had been so covered with stuff over the years next to the duplex.
And both the oven, that little black oven in the kitchen, is that ever used?
Yeah, we use it in the wintertime. I mean, it's not original to the house. It's just a wood-burning stove we put in since we've been here. But we have a lot of firewood. You can't see it. It's stored in the back there. And we use it in the wintertime quite a bit because the house is kept pretty cold because it's a lot to heat and it gets pretty expensive. So we use that when we're home on the weekends, and it's just delightful because it just throws off all this wonderful heat, and it's just a wood-burning stove. So we use it throughout the winter, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And also the side steps,
Mm-hmm.
the side door,
Mm-hmm.
and then it has, was that German saying?
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, Stuart, he has a number of friends that are of German descent, and someone sent him this quote from a house in Germany that had been restored, and I'm going to say what I believe it says, but I can't say that this is it exactly. But it's, "Look at me, an old house I am. Someone has loved me and made me new again." So that would be Stuart. He stenciled that up there in German script, in German language, and that's what that means. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we kept the foundation there, but he had to chop that out to be able to fit this in here because that was his plan for exactly where this needed to go.
Mm.
But yeah, isn't that great fun?
Yes, it is.
So F. Koenig, which was the original owner. It never ends. We'll get him calm down here. Come here, Monty. Come here. But when he comes sort of looking at you, "Hi, buddy. Monty. Come here, buddy." Who are all these people taking pictures? Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's not going to work. I don't know.
Good.
Yeah. Great yard for a dog.
Mm-hmm.
One day maybe we'll have two of them.